Have you ever noticed how the people who make everyone laugh are sometimes the ones who disappear the moment they get home? You know the person. They show up, they make jokes, they laugh at the right moments, they ask everyone else how they're doing, and if you ask them how they are, they smile and say, "I'm good." Maybe you're that person. You can be having the worst week of your life and still reply to a text with a laughing emoji. You can feel completely exhausted inside and still make everyone around you feel comfortable. You can walk into a room carrying something heavy and somehow nobody notices. Not because you're trying to fool everyone, sometimes you just don't know how to be any other way, because smiling became easier than explaining. And psychology says there's a reason this happens. The person who looks the happiest on the outside can sometimes be the person who's become the best at hiding what they feel. Not always, but often enough that it's worth paying attention to, because what people see is your behavior. They don't see the effort behind it. They see you laughing. They don't see how quiet your mind becomes the moment you get home. They see you helping everyone else. They don't see how difficult it feels to ask for help yourself. They see someone who's easygoing. Meanwhile, you're constantly managing emotions you don't know how to talk about. And here's where things get complicated. You may not even think of yourself as unhappy. That's the strange part. You can genuinely laugh. You can genuinely enjoy a conversation. You can have a good day and still feel broken somewhere underneath it. Human emotions don't work like a light switch. You don't have to be completely miserable to be struggling. You can experience happiness and pain at the same time. You can be grateful for your life and still feel exhausted by it. You can love the people around you and still feel completely alone. Two opposite things can be true at once. And sometimes you spend so much time trying to act normal that you stop asking yourself how you actually feel. You wake up, you go to work, you answer messages, you make jokes, you get through the day. And because you're functioning, you assume you must be okay. But functioning and feeling okay are not the same thing. Sometimes functioning is just what you've learned to do. You probably know exactly what I'm talking about if you've ever had a moment where someone said, "You're always so happy," and you just smiled because you didn't know how to explain that being funny doesn't mean you're happy all the time. Sometimes humor is simply the safest way you know how to express something painful. You make a joke about your problems before anyone else can ask about them. You laugh at the things that actually hurt. You turn serious moments into something funny, and suddenly nobody's asking questions anymore. The conversation moves on. You get to stay protected. Psychologists have studied this kind of emotional pattern for years, and one of the things they keep finding is that humor can become a form of emotional regulation. In simple terms, you use humor to make difficult emotions feel more manageable. The pain is still there, but now you can laugh at it. You can control the way it enters the room. You can decide how much of yourself people get to see. And honestly, that can feel safer than being completely honest. Because if you say, "I'm struggling," people might ask questions. They might look at you differently. They might try to help. And sometimes the idea of being truly seen feels more uncomfortable than continuing to pretend you're okay. So you make a joke instead. "Yeah, I'm falling apart, but at least the outfit looks good." Everyone laughs, and for a few seconds, you don't have to explain anything. That's the power of a smile. It can communicate happiness, politeness, comfort, or absolutely nothing about what is actually happening inside you. And maybe that's why people who hide their pain often become extremely good at reading other people. You know what it feels like to hide something, so you notice when someone else is doing it. You can hear the difference between a real laugh and a forced one. You notice when someone's energy changes. You ask, "Are you okay?" even when everyone else has already moved on, because you know what it feels like when nobody asks. There's something deeply ironic about that. You may be incredibly emotionally perceptive when it comes to everyone else and completely disconnected from yourself. You know when your friend is upset. You know when your partner's tone changes. You know when someone is pretending everything is fine. But when someone asks you how you are, you suddenly have no idea what to say. "I don't know. I'm just tired. It's nothing." Those phrases become automatic. And maybe it really does feel like nothing sometimes. Not because nothing is happening, because everything has been happening for so long that you don't know which feeling to name first. You have stress, disappointment, loneliness, anger, fear, exhaustion, and they all blend together until the only word you can find is fine. You may have learned early in life that your emotions were something you had to manage alone. Maybe you were the person who stayed calm when everyone else was falling apart. Maybe people depended on you to be the strong one. Maybe you became the funny one, the easygoing one, the person who never needed much. And after a while, that role becomes part of your identity. People start expecting you to be okay. And eventually, you start expecting it from yourself too. You don't allow yourself to fall apart because everyone knows you as the person who holds everything together. So when you finally feel overwhelmed, you hide it, not because you don't need help, because you don't know who you would be if you weren't the strong one. And here's something you might not realize. Sometimes the happiest version of you is also the most exhausted version of you, because keeping everyone comfortable takes energy. You monitor the mood of the room. You keep conversations moving. You make sure nobody feels awkward. You make people laugh when things get tense. You become the emotional temperature control for everyone around you. And then you go home. And finally, stop. The room is quiet. Your phone is face down. Nobody needs anything from you. And suddenly, everything you've been holding back starts showing up. That's why nighttime can feel so different. During the day, you're distracted, busy, needed. At night, the distractions disappear, and the emotions you postponed all day finally have space to speak. You lie there thinking about conversations, things you didn't say, things you wish you had said, the person you miss, the life you thought you would have by now. And suddenly, the smile you wore all day feels very far away. This doesn't mean the smile was fake. That's important. Your happiness can be real. The laughter can be real. The good moments can be real, but they don't erase the pain underneath. You don't have to choose one. You can genuinely enjoy a moment and still be struggling overall. You can laugh at dinner and cry in your car afterward. You can make everyone laugh and still feel like nobody truly knows you. You can be the person everyone comes to for advice and have no idea what to do with your own life. That's not hypocrisy. That's being human. The problem begins when the mask becomes so comfortable that you forget it's there. When "I'm fine" becomes your only answer. When you start believing that your problems aren't serious enough to deserve attention because someone else has it worse, because you can still work, because you can still laugh, because you don't look like the kind of person who's struggling. But pain doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like answering every message while secretly wishing someone would notice you're not okay. Sometimes it looks like making plans because being alone with your thoughts feels too uncomfortable. Sometimes it looks like being everyone's safe place while having nowhere to put your own emotions. And sometimes it looks like smiling. That's why you might need to ask yourself a question you usually avoid. When was the last time you were honest about how you feel without immediately making it smaller? Not "I'm tired," not "it's not a big deal," not "other people have it worse." Just "this is actually affecting me." Because you don't need to reach a breaking point before your feelings become valid. You don't need to earn the right to be tired. You don't need a dramatic reason to admit that something hurts. And you don't have to stop being funny. You don't have to stop making people laugh. You don't have to become a completely different person. Maybe you just need one place where you don't have to perform. One person you don't have to reassure. One conversation where you don't immediately say, "I'm fine." Because sometimes healing doesn't begin with a huge transformation. Sometimes it begins with telling the truth in a very small sentence. "I'm having a hard time lately." That's it. No perfect explanation. No complete understanding of your emotions. Just honesty. And maybe that's the deeper psychology here. You smile because you learned how to keep going. You make people laugh because humor gave you a way to survive difficult moments. You stay positive because hope is easier to carry when you share it with other people. But you are still allowed to have moments where you don't feel okay. You are still allowed to be the person who makes everyone laugh, and also be the person who needs someone to sit beside them in silence. Your strength does not disappear the moment you admit you're tired. Your value does not decrease when you need help. And you don't become a burden just because you're finally honest about what you've been carrying. Maybe the people who smile while feeling broken inside don't need to smile less. Maybe they just need to stop believing that the smile is the only version of themselves people are allowed to see. If you enjoy understanding human behavior, subscribe. And honestly, when people ask you how you're doing, do you usually tell them the truth or do you smile?